All right, so we're here at Klemic Performance Method Studio in Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. David Klemic. I'm here with Tim Watson, who former NFL draft pick for the Seattle Seahawks, former Rowan, former University of Maryland football player, former Mainland football player, both of our alma maters, and a current state champion coach and a state champion of your own when you were the head coach at Cedar Creek and opened that program up. And in the meantime, you have just blown everyone's mind in what you've done with the mental aspect of the game of football, which is huge. I have so many questions. I can't wait, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
I appreciate it. It's great to be here. It's good. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's good to sit down with you face-to-face, talk about some of this stuff. The mental aspect of the game, whether we're talking about football or any sports, I think is critical when it comes to success. And I think it blows my mind. You talked about blowing mind. It blows my mind that more programs don't try to implement some type of mental training into their programs. I think it's a game changer.
When we talk about this all the time in sports performance, and my crowd of people will know what we do. We start off with intent. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows what the I word is when we talk about that. So we address the crowd. We address the whole entire group, which is usually like 20 athletes. We look in the board. We go over anatomy, physiology, kinesiology. We go over how we want everything to be done that day, what measurements we need, and it's really setting the tone so they know what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish that day, what measurements we're trying to beat, and they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're going to do something that's going to work. Mm-hmm. That works temporarily. Yeah. What I would want to do is take the mental side of what we're teaching at that moment and it not dissipate into, it stays with them all the time. Yeah. That's the hard part, because that's great. They're ready to go right now, and once the pain sets in, and once they have to be gritty, they sometimes lose the mental side of it. So that's where we're going to take and we're going to steal from you today. I want to learn something right now too.
So when you talk about intent and purposeful practices, I think that's critical with success. And I think anytime you watch a program or you watch any type of sports performance program like you have here, that's going to be something that's paramount when you watch it. Athletes training with intent. It can wane, especially and I know you guys have a mixed group of kids, younger kids, some older kids. I would imagine with the older kids, there's probably a little bit more focus. I think one of the biggest things when we talk about mental performance that needs a word and a term that needs to be appreciated is awareness. The more that you can grow an athlete's awareness of why they're training, and another word that we'll talk about today a lot is their vision of where they want to go, the type of athlete they want to be, ultimately where they want to be, the stronger their awareness will be. So if I show up with the intention of making another step closer to where I want to go when I show up at KPM to train with Josh and Dave, I'm probably that's going to be able to sustain my focus because my awareness will be there. And with mental performance training, you can give athletes techniques that they can use, whether it's a reset word that they can use when they're going to get a drink of water, when you give them a break, or when they have good awareness, they'll recognize when they're starting to wane a little bit in their focus. So it's huge in terms of keeping that intentionality. And it's something that as coaches, even if you have a bunch of guys that are pretty locked in and focused and they may begin to lose it, you're probably going to have to try to remind them of that. And I think that's what creates a strong culture. Whether we're talking about a guy like me who coaches football, as much as we can get into it, and Chuck Smith's been great at Mainland, allowing us to really implement a strong mental performance program. It's still something that needs to be echoed by the coaches. It's something that you need to harp on a little bit. But I will say this, once it gets rolling, usually, if you take football, for example, if you have 40 kids out there practicing, not everybody's going to be locked in. Not everybody's going to be fully intent and purposeful with the way that they practice. But if you've talked about these things, if you build a vocabulary with the program where they understand what it means to be locked in mentally, they really understand what it means to be locked in with a level of awareness that's greater than an average team, you're going to have maybe half of those kids, 3/4 of those kids, even 1/4 of those kids that can begin to pick up the rest of the groups. And that's really what you need. And typically, in my years of really focusing on trying to train the mental as much as the physical, what I noticed is by the time you get to your junior or senior year, those athletes that have been hearing some of these things for their first couple years of high school, they've started to invest in it. So once they've invested in it, they understand that there's some rewards that they get out of it. And many of those rewards could be team awards, like winning big games, getting the championships, et cetera. So they're going to be driven to pick up the guys that are in that. There's that mountain of average, we call it in teams. So you have about 10%. That's your elite functioners. They're the ones that are going to be dialed in the whole time. They're the ones that are going to be echoing a lot of the things that you're going to talk about or that Josh talks about, or for me in the world of football, what the head coach is talking about, your coordinators, your position coaches. They're going to be locked into that. They're going to have to pull that other 80% with them. Then you usually have, after that, you have your guys that are the guys that you really got to drag along. So the goal is that 10%, and for you, it would be some of your guys that are your leaders, your older guys that have been with you for a while. They start to pull some of those guys out of that mountain of average to being elite performers. Not only by their words, but guys will see them, and they'll see the results. So I bet if we looked at your top performing athletes, those are going to be guys like that are getting the college scholarships, guys that are picking up the culture in here. They're positive. They're coaching guys up that they don't even go to school with. They don't even know. And the younger guys are going to see that, and they're going to want to get there.
You nailed this. That is so perfect, and it's realistic because you're not going to get everybody to dial in. We said that we get frustrated at the kids we're like we lost them a little bit, and sometimes we rely on a few of them to move and pull the other ones along. Yeah. That's unbelievably accurate. I'm just blown away because it's the same thing we talk about as coaches all the time, and it's the same parallel. But I'm fascinated by this. Also, I want to talk about what you accomplished this year, which was now nationally recognized because you won a state championship this year with a perfect record, and it did it in style. It was the most dominant season I've ever seen, not from like any team, or our team, but any team I've ever seen in New Jersey. Absolutely dominate the schedule defensively, shut everybody out basically. Like,
not quite, but
it was basically
we tied the record, the mainline record for shut.
It was unbelievable with a perfect season, and with the coaching in the off season, which was which coach allowed you to basically take it off whatever you wanted, and that process was what was most fascinating to me, was that Coach Smith allowed you to take that team and do all the mental training in the off season, and the goals that you guys set, you accomplished them all. I've never heard this done before. I know you spoke at Glacier Clinics in front of a lot of coaches now, and you guys had Shaq, Tom Brady, and everybody in the world talk to you guys and congratulate you on that type of a season. Maybe just talk about what happened. What happened? That's amazing. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, we had a great, number one, we had a great group of kids, great group of young men. You know a lot of them. You guys train a lot of them. We had a great staff. So when you have those things, it's going to make things a lot easier. Coach Smith, early on when I stepped down at Cedar Creek and came over to Mainland, I approached him because I'm very passionate about mental performance and mindset development. And the thing is, sometimes teams will do it, sometimes intentionally a little bit, maybe unintentionally. Coaches are always giving their players nuggets. I know Coach Lewis would do some of those things in the weight room where if you pay attention, just like I'm sure you guys, there's elements of mindset training that you're doing with your athletes. When you talk about being intentional, right? That's an aspect of awareness and focus. You're trying to make sure that they live out through their workout. So that's mindset training.
But no, we don't do that in an organized fashion at all.
True.
So we get lucky. We're throwing darts and it's not hitting.
Right.
What you guys do hits it every single time.
So Coach Smith was all in on it. I said this is something that I felt was paramount in our success at Cedar Creek. And again, we had great athletes, great coaches, but it was woven into how we coached our guys. We're gonna coach your mind. It's a weapon that you can use. It's something that can give you 100% a competitive edge. It's crazy. To me, if you don't train your mind, you're missing the boat. Right? So Coach was all about it. This year in particular, these guys now have had it. For the most part, I feel like we stepped it up each year so this was my fourth year. I came in with my son Hunter when he was a freshman. So by the time we got to year 4, I feel like it kind of leveled up a little bit. I got better because this was my first time being a mindset development coach and not the head coach. as a head coach, you can weave them in kind of when you see fit or when you need to. But being an assistant coach, it's something that you have to be. We got to be intentional with how we do it, how we time it out, just like you said. If not, it's just going to be sort of off the cuff. This group had been introduced to it now. This was their 4th year. So one of the things that we started doing 2 seasons ago, and this is when we won it with Jabril Mace and that great group of seniors, we won our sectional championship 2 years ago. But with this group, we sat down and we had our vision meeting. I'm a huge believer. Anybody that knows me in this world, I'm working with Cedar Creek softball right now. We just had our first meeting, and we had a vision meeting. We're going to vision cast, and we're going to take the leaders of the team. We're going to set them up in groups, and we're going to imagine the best case scenario for this team. And we're going to paint a picture of what that looks like. And we're going to ask a lot of detailed questions, right? If someone were to watch a practice, what are they going to see when they watch a practice? What's it going to feel like when they watch our practices? There's a certain energy, a certain vibe that they're going to pick up by watching us practice. What is it going to feel like to play on this team? What's it going to feel like when we're deep into the season to be a part of this? How are we going to respond to adversity? So there's a series of questions that we'll prompt them with, and the idea is to paint a crystal clear picture of what we want to be. And there's 2 prongs to it, though. So one is there's going to be the outcome goals. So everybody, we know everybody wants to win a championship, and the previous team at Mainland, we won our championship the year before. So now the goal was, since this was the second year with a state championship, we had won a sectional. The goal is to win a state championship. So that was the goal. You want to win your division. Those are all outcome goals. I believe that true champions focus on process goals. You focus on the day-to-day, that awareness, that intention that we talked about earlier. Those are things that are going to kind of rule your day, and you're going to try to develop these championship habits. But what does that look like? So we had to paint a picture. I showed them a video this year, and I've used it with a couple of teams that I've worked with this year, of J. Cole, who just dropped some fire today. Josh, I know you're a hip-hop head. He just dropped
Every one of our Who Dat Athletes of the Week is J. Cole Who Dat.
I was just listening to it on the way over. But anyway, I love J. Cole. Most of the kids, that's a crossover enough where I know I'm an older dude, but most of the kids are still listening to J. Cole too. So there's something I have in common. So I found this interview, and J. Cole basically talks about the 3 things that he would tell like a young person if they're chasing their dreams. And we have the kids watch it, and kind of you write down the notes. Tell me what 3 things he says. And one of the things that he says is, you want to dream big, right? You want to have a dream so big it's almost delusional. And that's one of the things that we talked about with this team. We knew from an outcome standpoint things that we wanted. But if this team really captured the idea of, man, how great could we really be? What they ended up doing by the end of the season was we won. It was 44-0 at halftime. We won. Was it 56-0? I think
we stayed, and we stayed through that whole cold rain. It was the biggest dominating. It was a complete domination. Yeah,
against a great program.
Yeah,
Ramapo, I think that was the most points they let up. I think they only let up like 17 points was the most they let up maybe like in 4 or 5 years previously. So an awesome program. It was just our day. But the run that we went on to get there, and it wasn't always like that. I mean, we beat Hamilton 14-7 early in the season. But this team continued to kind of grow into not only this championship process that they bought into, but they aligned themselves every day with the vision that they had, and they fought for it every day. And we were led by a group of those 10%ers. We had a great senior class who understood the importance of intent, the importance of being purposeful when they showed up to practice, and they wouldn't let a day go where they weren't calling somebody up. Right? I'm a believer in that. Right? We're gonna lift people up with us. You can be a great teammate and get in somebody's stuff and be intense while still pulling them up. So different coaches will talk about that. You can call out or you can call up. I'm a believer, and you're going to call people up with you. But we had a group of guys that would do that. So I think that one of the most special things with this team at Mainland this year was their ability to not only paint a picture of who they wanted to be, but attack it relentlessly every day. And that vision is something, if you're in warm-ups, that's sort of in there. There's a foundation. So I'm going to warm up like a champion, right? I'm not going to warm up and cut corners. I'm not going to do things in the weight room that I know could end up hurting us in the long run. I'm going to make sure that everything that I'm doing is fully aligned with achieving that vision that we have. And you have guys that hold each other accountable. And then when you start to see success, everybody kind of wants a piece of it. Everybody's like, yo, this stuff kind of works. So that's I think you have to start there. You got to start with, where do we want to go? The how will come, and we'll talk about that. We paint out the how. How does it look, right? Coach, you talk about it, right? So we know what guys that don't get the best results training here, we know what it probably looks like. It's guys that are probably showing in late. They're putting on their shoes a certain way. Maybe they're dragging behind with certain things. There's those behaviors add up, though, right? So you want to make sure that we understand, how you do anything is how you do everything. And for some, it might sound, you maybe heard it a million times, maybe it sounds corny, but it's the truth. Like, we want our guys picking up trash in a facility or in school because they know that's probably making it easier for that custodian that's working their butt off. And now I'm stacking good behaviors, right? By doing that, that's like, I'm not saying you got to go around picking up trash everywhere you go, but if you notice you could make somebody's day a little bit better, in that moment, you're building yourself into that champion, right? So being a champion shouldn't be something that we sort of flip off and on. Like, I'm going to be a champion now. It's time in practice. It's going to get hard. Let me step up. Nah, man, you want it to really do something special. It's got to consume you. It's got to be something that and why not be someone that embodies championship habits? And the thing about it is, too, it's like a never-ending quest, because nobody's perfect. And you're going to have down days. So you're always going to be on your toes with that. But it starts with a vision. And the guys this year really bought into, they painted a crystal clear picture of where they wanted to go. And like J. Cole said, they ended up superseding that vision. Nobody, I don't think anybody, even everybody in that room, would have believed that we would have went on the run in the playoffs against some really, really good teams the way that we did. But we did it. So there was a lot of magic to it. And I think that, our buy-in with mindset, I think that played a part in it.
Yeah, I had Coach Smith on our ESPN radio show, and at 97.3 with Billy Schweim for the locker room. And I had him come in there, and one of the main things he said, let's talk about the off season. Let's talk about the kids, and let's talk about the off season, how we started setting this up a long time ago. And he gave you a huge shout out about awesome. How that contributed to the winning process. And if I could, I'm laughing earlier because I'm reverse engineering my own self into what made me successful and what backed that up. Like, why was I successful at certain times or unsuccessful at other times? And some of the things you said, our locker room, like in the Chiefs locker room, and I don't know how it was in Seattle, but I remember Coach Vermeil going, we cannot win if your guys' lockers are a mess. Like we walked by one of our points of pride were how our lockers looked, and he would come by and look at our lockers, and I mean, like, this is not something we can win with. There's a messed up locker, right? And I was like, wow. And you said how to put your shoes on. And Coach Hulsapple will scream at people for not having a sense of urgency in transitioning from shoes, because we switch shoes in a workout, flips out about that, and that's a huge thing when we have 60 minutes to create a perfection and to create something that we got like 12 weeks to turn somebody up 6 inches in a vertical leap, 2 miles per hour. If you miss on some of those things and you're missing time, you're going to lower our scores, which is what carries carries us into being this organization that's been pretty successful now too. So I'm using all this information, and it's a neat thing that you're saying. And I think football players who will get sprinkles of this, you're giving them a complete package with what you're giving them. Like that to me is the one thing that every kid can take away from football and be successful in life. Yeah. Because we always use sports as a metaphor for life, and that's the takeaway. You want to be successful in life, look at the things that you learned as a player on the field like that. Yeah. And that will always make a successful human being. Forget the player.
I'll say this, the fact that you guys have those standards. So if Coach Josh is getting on guys because they're not getting their shoes changed as quick as they should, that's good. Like, you guys will have to take a look in the mirror the day that he's not. He's like, all right, come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's when the culture and the standard in here is going to be lowered, right? And you're successful when you have a ton of people that want to be a part of this. One, because they get results, but two, there's a reason they're getting these results. And I think it's the care and the passion that you guys have. And you're, whether you're doing it intentionally or not, there's a way of doing things here. There's a culture that you guys are fostering. And if it's something as simple as that, that's real though. Like, and if they don't hear it from coach, they could hear it from their high school coach, but certainly if they have aspirations of playing college football, a strength coach is not going to wait for you to take your time getting on your shoes, right? A head coach is not going to wait for you to get from one drill to another on the practice field. There needs to be a sense of urgency. And the thing that I think mindset training does is it's preemptive in getting us ready to attack it. Very intentional, like we talked about, not reactive. Like my coach is getting on me. I know my coach is going to yell at me because I'm not hustling from one drill to another. I need to hustle from one drill to another because that's how I get better. I might be able to find an edge that way. I'm building up my resilience in that moment where I might be fatigued. That's going to show up in the fourth quarter by being locked in. So there's all these moments where you can stack confidence, you can stack these different skills mentally that are woven in every single day. And when you're intentional about it, you know that you're doing that. So you're probably going to put more effort into doing those little things the right way because you know it's gonna help out in the long run.
Love this. We're gonna go to commercial right here, and we're gonna and when we come back, we're gonna go into some of the other things that we have bullet pointed in, which is pretty cool. And I think to lead into some of the things that we said earlier, into a neat word that I've never heard before. I can't wait to talk about this one too. So let's see. We'll have a word from the Trazer. We'll be right back.
Learn to play testing has its limits, and I think the Trazer, and gets me excited, but if we can hook them up to a Trazer, we can have true objective data even better than what we're doing now. And that's why the return to play testing, it's still evolving, it's progressing, it needs to continue to evolve because we're not perfect at it. But something like the Trazer, like that's kind of game-changing.
I think I'm one of the first guys in South Jersey to really champion it. Like that was, so when I got the job at Cedar Creek, when I interviewed, it was more about, I want to develop young men of high character. Like that's job number one. And mental performance and culture development, all those things, I felt like that was something that I needed to hit because the winning will take care of itself. And then you win 2 times. Like you're instilling some really strong values in kids, and you're probably going to win with kids that have really strong values, right? So then you're going to win, right? And that's going to create its own success. But that was the goal, really, because I'm talking to me when I was 15, 16 years old. Like, I know that it was like I wouldn't have went through the stuff that I went through at Maryland or the struggles that I went through had I had some type of
You
foundation.
recording this? This is like, dude. Were you on right there?
Yeah, I was recording. I had it on for
That was deep. I love.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so that's it, man. Like I hope the kids, when we get into this stuff, like really, like the ones that do love it. Like it's funny. So you know Paul Lombardo. I don't know if Paul trained. We had a couple kids. So we did a lesson on every pregame. Chuck would give me like 15, 20 minutes. Not a ton on. Usually it's the summer, right? So Monday, Wednesday night. Here you got 20 minutes. Monday, 20 minutes on Wednesday. Do what you got to do. And I'll usually, I have chapters. Here's what we're going to do. This week we're talking about self-talk, body language. I'll give them examples. So as you get into the season, it becomes almost more, let's refocus. Let's make sure we're good with our clarity on where we want to be. So we would come up with and I have it in some of the slides that I shared with you, our path, like where we wanted to go, our vision, and then the basically the how, what's it look like. Guys aren't, if dudes aren't touching the line when we're running gassers, guys are getting on them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it looks like. So we would put that stuff down. So it's clear on exactly what we look like. But by the time you get to the season, I would just review those things. We had our things, and I'll show you on here, but it's basically our goals. And one of the things that we came up with this year, I kind of came up with on the fly early in camp, was mission over mood was a thing that we went with. To your point of keeping focus, right? What's our mission? So when I would say mission over mood, that meant I saw a couple guys that were kind of slacking a little bit. They're not performing in a way that is going to help us get to where we need to be in December. So mission over mood, usually your mood or your feelings, that's the stuff that can get us derailed a little bit. But if you're mission driven, if you're focused, if you show up intentional and purposeful about staying on mission, and again, you have a bunch of guys doing that, it's a lot easier to stay on mission. Too many people, they come out here, they do a couple drills, They start to get tired. Coach Josh is getting on them a little bit. They may start to waver a little bit with where their mind is. And they start to focus on their mood. Well, I didn't want to come tonight. My parents made me come because I only have so many sessions. And they start thinking about things that aren't in alignment with being your best. So mission over mood was one of the things that we talked about. But one of the motivational tactics that we use was basically, this was in the playoffs 2 years ago. There was a Stoic phrase, memento mori, which it basically means remember that you're going to die, right? And I read about it one morning. I was reading like Daily Stoic was one of the things I would start my day off with, and memento mori was one of the stories that I read that day. What that phrase mean was what it's all about. And basically, you would have leaders that would have somebody follow along with them and let them know, even at their highest of highs, like, look, remember, you're going to die. And it wasn't something that was supposed to be real negative or real somber, but it's more, hey, remember, you're going to die, so be grateful for this moment. Be grateful for the relationships that you have. So we talked about that, and we really opened that up in one of our pre-games where we tapped into that emotion before we headed into the game, like, if this was the last time that you got to play with somebody when you were playing with Stone or some of those guys you played with the Sharks and then you're playing with at Mainland, and you know that it's the playoffs, so this could be the last. Like, how do you want this thing to go? Memento mori turned into something where we're going to honor each other. We're going to play our hearts out for each other because this might be the last. And I want to live my life like that. I want to try to live my life remembering that I'm going to die. We're all going to go some point. Like, that's guaranteed, right? If we honor the moments that we have, that we get to share with people that we care about, really honor them, really be intentional and purposeful with them, it becomes something really powerful. So that week, so the kids were all in, and memento mori, and again, that's something. It could be something catchy. A million people have talked about memento mori, right? But a lot of our boys have never heard that word before. So now you're equipping them with a word that's going to capture the essence of being in the moment, being present, honoring one another, playing for one another. So later on that week, we're getting ready now for the next, I think we're getting ready for the championship game the next week. So that was a pregame lesson that we talked about. And we have two cats on the team that had it tattooed on them, right? And not because Coach Watson did, but because the message that whatever, I was inspired to share that message. God planted that in me that morning. I'm going to talk about this tonight. And they felt that inspiration, and they understood what the main meaning of that message was before that game, was this idea of honoring the moment, being in the present, right? Being totally intentional about everything that we do with each other, regardless of any doubts, regardless of what it might look like, if people might judge us. I'm going all in with my brother. We're going to celebrate together. We're going to do everything we got to do to win this game. They were all in on that, and then they showed up. I thought they were fake tattoos, because I think Paul had his on his wrist, which is great. Like, I don't have a tattoo that's definitely in a top 5 of mine that I would get, because it's a reminder, right? It's an affirmative reminder. Be in the moment, right? We can all get caught up easily, right, in our day-to-day hustle of forgetting how important it is to be present. But memento mori stuck with those guys. So Paul, and it was Jack Veneman. Jack, and I think had it on his lower abdominal. But those guys, you talk about guys that are all in, and that group was all in with it. They were all in, and they took those messages to heart. So when we talk about that 10%, right, that's a 10%er. Right, and then kids see that, man, and then that carries on. And if we do our jobs as coaches to continue to build on their development of their mindset, then it's something that becomes a tradition. Like, man, we talk about in the beginning of the season, like, our mindset's going to be our edge. Like, it's going to be our weapon. Like, one thing that's going to happen on Friday night is plays are going to be made, but we are not going to lose the mindset game. Our minds are going to be stronger. Our responses are going to be more intentional, right? We're going to make sure that those things are on point. That's why we're talking about them. That's why we're building them up now. And then there's drills that we'll do in practice too that test that. And maybe we had that stuff when we were young and we played, like hard drills, hard times. But if you're not intentional, and if there's not a language to describe, and if there's not an understanding with the team, you think the coach is just trying to kill you. But a lot of times coach was trying to build you up. But he left it to you to figure that out. And sometimes that's the best teaching too. But we made sure that if we're going to push these guys, they can rely on, hey, start reciting some of the mantras that you have, some of the affirmations that you created. And that's one of the things that we installed at Mainland too, and I had at Cedar Creek was eat. It was effort, attitude, tenacity. That was a mantra that we used, and there's a definition for it. And the kids got to remember it. I can't, for privacy purposes, that's only to the people that are in it, right? So at Cedar Creek, it was basically the same thing. It was effort. We will play a certain way, and they would memorize that. Attitude, we will embody this type of attitude. Tenacity, we will be tenacious, and it was more elongated than that. But the boys would remember it. If they couldn't remember it, they might have to do some up downs or something like that. But the important thing was to give them some railroad tracks. So now when they are doing up downs, let's say eat. Let's spell it out. Now when you spell it out, feel that, right? So we're doing two things, right? We're digging in and we're building neural pathways that are helping us to remember something to focus on when it gets hard. We're connecting to each other with it. Everybody's with that sort of that shared purpose of what we're trying to do. And we're firing off these affirmations that we should be able to carry us when when I'm a 40-year-old man and I'm in the weight room. And I can remember I just had a kid that hit me up, Mike Alvarez, great. If you don't know about him, you need to know about him. He's like probably the biggest Christian hip hop DJ Mike Alvarez. He played for me. I just put it on my story the other day. He tagged me. He's trying to get back in shape. He is getting back in shape. Lost a bunch of weight, but he was in there doing flies, and he said something about like eat. So I'll hear a lot of that from kids because they remember, man, like that mantra that we created got them through a lot, and they rely on they fall back on that stuff when life gets hard, right? Kids that have joined the military, be like, Coach, man, I would say that eat. I still have it. It helps me get through some of these tough things. So that stuff always makes me feel real good that they're buying into it, and they have a tool. Like, I don't want to just it's not just about motivating. Like, I love to inspire. I love to be inspired, right? Through music, through things that I watch. I love inspiration because I believe it comes from somewhere sacred, right? But if we can equip them while motivating them and inspiring them with real tools, like creating affirmations that are personal to you and to your group, that's a huge part of mental performance. Any type of mantra that's going to give you a railroad track to get focused, to get realigned when you can get knocked off, the more you repeat it and the more you feel it, it becomes a part of you. So mantras and affirmations are a big part of what we do with mental performance as well.
Well, anybody that knows me knows if I'm quiet, it must be very interesting because I'm usually yapping, and it's hard to get me to stop. So I'm in complete fascination with this, and there's a good reason for that. I played for Hall of Fame coach Dick Vermeil. He's inducted 2 years ago. Now, as great of a coach he was, and I didn't know why he was such a good coach. There was he had been NFL coach of the year 3 times, 3 different teams. That's never been done.
That's crazy.
He's taken teams that were under 200 and taken them up to 7,500 score win percentage 3 times. Did it in his 3rd year on each of the teams. All these things needed developmental time, which is what you're saying. It took time.
Sure.
Right? During that time, he talked about how the different things that he did as a coach, right? And I'm just thinking, well, he just loved us. He loved us. He did it. And one time I heard him speak at a lacrosse banquet, or it was a national lacrosse conference up in Philadelphia. And he talked about the psychology between underneath each one of the things he did when he was coaching, and we didn't even know it.
Yeah,
we did not even know it. He just did it, and then we didn't know that we were practicing it the whole time because you don't have 3 years with a guy a lot of times. In the NFL, you're just whipping them through the program. So he has to show you as much love and care. But when he was at UCLA, they won the Rose Bowl, and he had them for a couple years, and he took them 3 years, and he tried. I remember him saying, I'm not going to get rid of you. At least for 3 years.
Yeah,
and I go, I'm here for 3 years. He's like, I don't believe you. I didn't even get myself an apartment, but he's like, I need 3 years with these guys to develop them into the people that I want them to be. I'm not going to cut you. I'm not going to get rid of you. You may think that I am, but I need 3 years. And in our 3rd year, what did we start? 9-0. Started off the year 9-0. We were the hottest team in the NFL. And we all believed in each other.
Yeah.
People that did not believe in themselves. Dante Hall did not believe in himself. He made him believe in himself. And these processes that you're saying are coming from one of the greatest coaches. Well, there's maybe 3-4 NFL coaches in the Hall of Fame. He's one of them. Almost you're nailing the things that he did. And I'm looking back on the processes that he was doing with us. You're saying, and you have organized it into things where you're intentionally doing them with kids and teaching them the process instead of just going, I'm going to do it for you.
Yeah.
You're teaching them how to do the process.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming part of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
You're fortunate that you had that. He's a transformational coach, right? So there's I think there's two categories of coaches. There's transformational coaches, and the reason I thought of that is because that's a transformational versus transactional is a very, very common theme when it comes to looking and analyzing at different philosophies in coaching. You talked about him wanting to develop high character people. A transformational coach is going to coach the person, the spirit of that person first and foremost, and that's what matters. Like, I want to win football games. We want to do big things, but I got to make sure that you're the best version that you can be, and I really care about that. That's what I want to see. A transformational coach is going to be like that, and anyone that has that is fortunate. Transactional coaches, you see it a lot in the NFL because you don't have that time to develop it. It's a little bit more cutthroat. It's what can you do for me? You're coaching the number of the jersey instead of the young person that's wearing that jersey. You know what I'm saying? So transformational to me is if you're really into coaching and you're going to invest all the time that you put into it, that's the way to go. Because if I'm gonna pour a lot of my time, and I'm gonna spend a lot of time away from my family, and I'm a coach, I better love these kids that I'm working with. I better invest in conversations that really try to connect to them to see the type of person they are, so that it's a deeper relationship. So that when they feel success, they feel that there's a connection to the people that they're with, the team, the coaches that they're with. That's one of the things that you got to be wary of, especially I have some kids that have a daughter that's playing college basketball, and she has a
Notre Dame, by the way.
Notre Dame. So Niele Ivy, shout out Coach Ivy. She is a transformational coach, and my daughter sustained an injury, but I couldn't be happier about where she is and who she's with in this next chapter of her journey. She's going to get better from what's happened to her. She tore ACL. She's gonna recover physically, but she's with a group of people, and she's equipped now because we get into a lot of this stuff as well. She's gonna end up thriving through this, and a lot of it's because of the coach that she's with and the coaching staff that she has and her teammates and the culture that Coach Ivy's created. It's important to be transformational because you're dealing with people, especially in high school. You're talking about young people. So if it's just about the bottom line, and I get it, we want to win and we want to compete, like, no doubt, like, with intensity, right? I want to get after it. But you're talking about people, right? And I think the more that the young people that you work with understand that you care about them more than just the stats they provide or the wins that they help you get, they're going to play harder for you as well.
The most one of the most profound things that Coach Vermeil used to say too, and now it's a famous saying. I also made it famous by saying on ESPN radio all year, was the players don't care what you know until they know that you care. Yep. And I had to repeat that on the show all the time because Billy kept forgetting it. But it's one of the neatest things that you're saying. Once they know that you care, they open themselves up to learning of what you know. Yeah. Coach Vermeil did that very naturally, but it was intentional. And I didn't know that it was like there was a whole psychology behind the thing. And what you're saying, that mindset that you set with that team didn't just create a state championship football team. You created championship people. Like, I could get really emotional for what happened this season, and I could see. And I talked to John Stone, who's an Oakland Raider. There's a neat thing of the story about the three of us. That Tim Watson, you went in 2000. I went in 01. John Stone went in 02. We had all thrri of us were NFL players at the same time from the same high school. That's hardly ever heard of, even at a big school like a Don Bosco or DeMatha or something like that. You don't get three guys playing in the NFL at the same time, guys that made it through. And I said, what do you think? Would you think this team could beat us back in the day, right? And he said, we had better athletes. They were more prepared. He watched all the games. He goes, they were more prepared.
Connected too. Man.
Yeah.
This team was connected.
We looked at the one thing that we did well, because we played teams that had better athletes than everybody we played. That includes Camden, Woodrow Wilson, and everything like that. We were the only people that could beat us probably were us, and sometimes we did. We were dominating games and everything like that. But he said this team would beat us because of how well they were coached and how you could tell on everything that every single process you were watching. And I go, you could tell that much from watching the game. Did you talk to Tim? Did you talk to him? He's like, no, I watched that from the outside. I know what this looks like. Yeah. And you could see from the way that Ethan Schock got to the line of scrimmage, from the way defense swarmed to everything, from the way that the running backs pounded the defensive backs and made defensive backs be tacklers when they did not want to be against like Millville or whatever. It was so organized, and we tested you guys before ahead of the time with the the jumps and the 40s and everything like that, and we were like, this is going to be an athletic team. Yeah. Chuck didn't say anything too much about. He didn't. I think we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to be okay. He didn't say anything like that, but he goes, "We're going to be prepared. That's what we're going to be prepared." And he goes, "That I know." And so he knew in July that they were like That's the most confident I've heard him at that point. Because normally he goes, "I don't know. We'll see." He knew that you're going to be prepared. So, John, and that's a hard thing because the only person that didn't want you guys to win was me and probably my team, because we didn't want to be not the best team ever at Mainland anymore, And so I think we our hats are off to what you guys have accomplished this year and hand you the belt as the best team to ever play at Mainland. And it was really because of that leadership and that preparation. And I said, if that's coming, hey, there was no mic on. That was just me and John at lunch talking about what he thought, and I had to agree with him. I go, that was one of the most amazing things that I think a lot of people have ever seen. And the major takeaway was we had more scholarship players. We had more highlight reel players and stuff like that. You guys had more. It was just done like an army. It was absolutely perfect. So. We'll come back after another commercial to the Trazer, and we'll start, and we'll end up with some neat things about our journeys together and where we see this going in the future. And
to play testing has its limits, and I think the Trazer, and this gets me excited, that if we can hook them up to a Trazer, we can have true objective data even better than what we're doing now. And that's why the return to play testing, it's still evolving, it's progressing, it needs to continue to evolve because we're not perfect at it. But something like the Trazer, that's
commercial. Love that product, obsessed with it. Wrote an article. My first article I wrote ever, 1,100 words, which was supposed to only be 500 words, but I can't stop talking in conversational, pattern or whatever. And so the Trazer, which really reads biomechanics immediately, it's one of those things that I learned to catch correlations in jumps, and that's why we are able to kind of speak at some of these schools that we're doing now. We spoke at Naval Academy, which is a really, really a cool one. But anyway, we're going to summarize kind of what, in summary, and kind of what was the main takeaways from this magical, unbelievable football season.
Yeah, I think the thing that if I had to really give a philosophy that summarized it, it's see it, feel it, be it, right? So we talked about our vision that we had, and with that, it's twofold. There's a vision that you create for yourself, and then there's the practice of visualizing. I think anything that you're going to envision, you have to really feel it. That's sort of like the magic part of it all, is feeling it. I know for a fact that you were doing this stuff because I can remember conversations that we used to have when you were young. But you got to be able to feel it and imagine it. Like your imagination, two things that I think are really powerful that we talked about today. One is awareness as an athlete, but also your imagination. Like if we could all tap back into that 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid that had big dreams. When you had dreams in the backyard and you're running touchdowns in the backyard and making game-saving tackles, or you're making the big catch to win a game, or you're out in your driveway shooting that last-minute shot, like you're feeling it and you're imagining that stuff. So you see it, you feel it, like you feel everything that it is to achieve your dream, what it feels like to be living that life. You feel it to the point where it's giving you goosebumps, and then you be it. And with this team in particular, the being of it was our habits, the actions that we took every day, the behaviors that we embodied every day were championship behaviors. Like we had champion standards, and we had enough guys at the top that would pull everybody up if we weren't meeting those standards. We had a coaching staff that understood, a ton of coaches that have played in championship games, that have been around really high-level teams. And whether you're intentional about teaching it or not, all great teams have that, right? So see it. You got to see it first, and it's got to be clear. You're not going to know where you're going. And I think too many athletes today, they say they set goals and they might have a goal, but it's not real clear. There needs to be clarity, and it needs to be crystal clear. Exactly where do you want to go? How do you want to look? How do you want people to perceive you? What does that look like? If you're a champion, what does that look like? Precisely what does it look like? Write all that stuff down. So you got to see it, and you got to be able to feel that thing. You got to be able to fuel it with your imagination, and then you go out and you do it every day. And what gets you through those hard times is your ability to feel it, is your ability to see it. That'll kind of fuel you through it. So that would be my if there was one thing that this group did, it was those three combined, and they did it consistently. And they were an inspiration. And I talked about that at our banquet. Like, they inspired me, as an adult that had been coaching for a long time. I never thought that I would realize that a group of young men could be so inspiring in terms of chasing their dreams, going at it the way that anybody who believes in chasing dreams, anybody that believes in accomplishing great things, this group was doing it. And they were doing it as young men, as 16, 17, 18-year-old young adults. They were living out the way that you should live out your life when you're chasing something big. So that was inspiring. But see it, feel it, and be it.
Well, I know what you're explaining it's an amazing thing, because in any business world, you have to create a business plan first. And then the more detailed you can make a business plan, the more things you can attack and try to follow. If you have no business plan, you really don't go very far. Yeah. So everyone requires a business plan in the beginning, even if it's very simple. And then it gets more detailed. And then the more detailed you are, the better your business actually was. If it's very general, okay, cool. But the best business plans also, just like you're organizing the approach to every single day, and not just the goal, but the daily goals, which are going to create the macro goals that create the micro goals and to create the macro goals. And then you can achieve something really significant like you guys did this season. But one of the things that story you told about Kintsugi, right? Kintsugi.
Yeah.
Is that the right
Kintsugi,
word?
yeah.
Kintsugi.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the plans.
Yeah.
There was mistakes that are made.
Yep.
There are things that happen by accident that can really have beauty. And I'd love you to just tell that story, because that, I think, is a huge part of processes that people don't calculate.
Yeah, Kintsugi, I spoke about this at the Atlantic City Coaches Convention, really trying to highlight how I became passionate about mental performance, the impact that it had on my life. And it was really through the mistakes that led me there and led me down a spiritual journey as well. But Kintsugi really it's the philosophy of putting things back better than they were originally, with a unique beauty. And the story is thousands of years ago, a Japanese shogun basically had this teacup that he loved and he revered, and one day he broke it. So he had it sent back to China to be fixed, and it was returned to him, but it didn't look the same. There wasn't the same energy. It was kind of stapled together with metal staples. It looked a little sloppy. So he had his people try to do a better job. And they basically put it back together piece by piece with a gold epoxy, a gold adhesive made with real gold. So now you had this teacup that was shattered into hundreds or thousands of pieces that is now woven together with this gold lining. And it looked more beautiful than ever. And that's like our life. Like when we choose to have the perspective that things happen for us, not to us, when we grow through a lot of the adversity and the challenges that we have, it can be something beautiful. And I know in my journey, I wouldn't become the person that I am today. I wouldn't have become the person I am today had I not been through some of the hardships. So it's like we talked about J. Cole earlier, in my favorite song, Love Yours, he says, there's beauty in the struggle, right? And that's what Kintsugi is. You can find beauty out of the hard things that you go through. And when you reflect back on them, it's usually those things that made you who you are. So with a season, with an athlete, you're always going to have nothing's going to be easy. As great as things were for us this year at Mainland, it wasn't easy. There were ups and downs. with the right perspective, those downs made us better. We learned from them. We grew from them. So we put gold in those fractures to make it even better when we look back and reflected on it.
Yeah, and I think that those things or those adversities are where you find out the most about yourself, because then you're tested.
Absolutely.
We test all the time, objectively. Check yourself. Did you go up by 1/100th of an inch? Did you go up by, did you change at all?
Yeah.
And if you didn't, how can we correct those things? And then it's a test every single day. So when you have adversity and people get down by adversity, and I get inspired sometimes. I get inspired by adversity because I know I'm strong enough. I believe in myself because I've been tested so many times. If you're never tested, you never know. You really don't know. So I'm never afraid of adversity, and I think that is what has made me as relatively successful through this process that has had way ups and downs. I go, no, don't worry about it. It's coming back. I'll learn from this. And the processes that you've taken have today I learned a lot. And that's kind of what I was hoping selfishly that I get through this. I can't wait to learn some more, and I can't wait to bring you back on here again.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, and before you go, I want everyone to tell you how can we reach you, because people are going to want to hear more about this.
I think the two easiest places off the top are at Coach Watson on Twitter and on Instagram as well, and I'm sure you guys can tag that on here. There it is, boom. That'd probably be the easiest, and then. There's going to be some things coming in the spring where we're going to expand things a little bit. And I want to say one more thing, because you inspired me just with what you were saying. When you set those goals or you have those visions and adversity happens, I think too often we're quick to dismiss those as things that are ruining the plan, right? And I don't believe that. I believe that's God putting that stuff in your path because you said you wanted that. You said you wanted that. You said you wanted to be the same way that you hold your guys accountable in here. If we know we want to hit this mark, you might have to get on them at times. And there might be times where they take a step back. That step back might be exactly what's required to get there. I think too often athletes will take some of these, whether it's an injury or some type of hardship, you're put on the bench for a game, whatever it is. Sometimes that's exactly what you need. And when you prayed for that, when you envisioned that, it's basically what you asked for coming to fruition. It may not be the way that you think it's supposed to be, right? But it's the way it's supposed to be.
Your NFL career ended with a real serious injury. Yeah. My NFL career ended with a real serious injury. If I look back on it, there's nothing I would have preferred to happen than the way it did now. Yeah. Looking back then, I'm like, gosh, I just wish I could have played longer. Yeah. I do not say that anymore. Yeah. It doesn't. I stopped saying that a couple years ago, probably when I got married, maybe a little bit before that. But I've been on the spiritual journey where I go, that is not. I look at other guys I met with. Dante Hall gets inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. I saw some of my friends. They're doing great. I don't think they're spiritually where they should be. And I think I'm a lot happier. I have more depth. And I had one of my friends from a Bible study that we used to go to named Chris Horn. I'll call him out right now. He is there, and his career ended early from an injury, and then just kind of performed out. He was just getting outperformed after the injury, and kind of fizzled his career out short. But he is there spiritually, and me and him vibed like crazy, and we still are really in close touch to this day. And so I love both our maturities, who are both like, we use our NFL careers to give us a boost. Yeah. But nothing if it's not shining light back on our faith and our journeys too, of how our adversity can teach something. So anyway, it's been such a blessing having you on. Can't wait to do this again. I love you with the love of Christ. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's a quote from Eddie Kennison. I use it all the time now. But anyway, all right. So we'll wrap it up right there. But from Klemic Performance Method, this is Dave Klemic with Tim Watson. See you next time.